Hey everybody, it's Friday, April the 5th, 2024, and welcome to How to Restart a Church, a spin-off podcast where I, Pastor Trey Comstock, and my friend and colleague, Pastor Emily Larson, talk about how to make church happen and how to make church happen again. I said this at the end of the previous show. I'll say at the top of this one. Yeah, we know the production's bad right now. We know it's bad. Emily's moving. We are not just restarting a church. We are currently restarting a studio. And
moving studios.
The struggle bus is real. I know it is mobile. All production is hard. Mobile production is especially hard. I have a multi-$1,000 rig I take with me when I need to be able to podcast remotely, and we just don't have two of those. So
yeah, I don't have one of those. So shout outs to my sister and her husband for letting me use their better internet today as I am moving and getting new internet set up in my new house. The struggle is real, but thanks for bearing with us today.
And so from this week's How to Restart a Church, this is less I found an article, or less we've got a cool guest. And something that I have been wanting to talk about for a while and didn't have the way to do it. Still not entirely sure that I do. I only spent a good chunk of this week doing it. I want to talk about the attention economy. And that is, the attention economy is the concept that, this is actually true, from so a lot of the articles are for this that we're going to talk about are like 6, 7, 8 years old. This is when I got turned on to this idea. But it is the idea that the most valuable thing in the global economy is no longer oil or steel or cobalt. It is human attention, right? And don't take my word for it. We will link in the show notes an Economist article from 2017. The world's most valuable resource is no longer oil, but data. And that data is acquired when you click things, right? That you think about that Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, pick your social, their predecessors, your MySpaces, your Friendsters, your Snapchats.
Oh my goodness.
You didn't pay for any of it.
Yeah.
You still don't. And when you don't pay for it, you're the product, not...
You are the product.
You're the product. And so I pulled up to illustrate this, right? And these are valuations via since April the 1st. These are relatively current valuations. The number one most valuable company in the world by market capitalization is Microsoft at $3.13 trillion. In part because they have massive server server level things that provide the infrastructure for the attention economy. Apple has a market capitalization of $2.65 trillion. They sell you the devices that you consume, you give your attention into, and they are currently being sued by the United States government for monopolistic practices to entrap people within their platform. NVIDIA is number 3. They make the parts that go into the servers that Microsoft will then sell you. They are worth $2.26 trillion. And then at number 4 is Saudi Arabian Oil, our first oil company in the top 5. After that, Google. How much money do you give Google a year? Odds are very little. How much of your life is mediated through Google? A lot. They are valued at $1.89 trillion and had a gross profit of $174.3 billion, for which they made, you gave them zero of those.
Right.
$0.
Trillion.
Numbers.
This is trillion with a
trillion
T.
with a T.
Not a billion with a trillion with a T. My goodness.
Number 6 is Amazon. 1.87 trillion. Admittedly, you do give them a lot of money, but big part of their business that you don't see is they are selling server space to the people who are garnering your attention. And then number 7 is where I'll stop this list, is Meta, owners of Facebook, owners of Instagram, owners of WhatsApp, all free services that unless you are advertising with them, in which case you are buying their users, which I've done sometimes, full disclosure, you, the user, don't pay them anything. Back in, I think it was 2017. 2017? Where is this article from? Yeah, something like that. 2017, 2018. Reed Hastings, at that time, CEO of Netflix, said that Netflix's real competitor isn't Disney or whatever. It's sleep. That the number one competitor to Netflix is the human biological need to sleep. Right. And so this is actually what drew me into this topic. There was this article that I just can't find, in partly because Google is just worse than it used to be. Shout outs to it being free. I read this article a million years ago, reflecting, as a lot of this stuff was, as the attention economy was really becoming like a topic du jour within the tech press. I used to have a tech news website and a tech news podcast, and so I still have some of the like leftover feeds from that. And so I got pulled into the think pieces on it. It was basically like, look, one of the most rebellious things you can do in the world is sleep. That sleep itself is dying. Because so many of these companies make their money by you viewing advertising and you clicking on things. And
yes,
you might be doing that while you're working. You might do what I often do, which is both be on Netflix and Twitter at the same time. It's great. It's great. But
or
when you're sleeping,
TikTok in your video game, or your work, or your Netflix and your whatever, right? We're all multitasking, multiple screens now.
Or podcasting as your part of your job, and thus feeding into the attention economy in its own way, right? We don't make any money off this show.
Or listening to this podcast while you're driving or working or whatever else.
Right. But when you're sleeping, you're not doing that. And so sleep is on the decline. Sleep is on the decline because the way some of the biggest companies in the world, these multi-trillion-dollar companies, how they make money is by you not sleeping, by you not doing anything else other than consume their content, generate the data that they're going to sell, and then view the advertising that they have already sold. So how does this relate to church? Because this is, we are not a conspiracy theorist podcast. These are also not conspiracies, right? Like, I'm going to have I'm going to also link a great piece from The Guardian, looking at a whole bunch of people who came out of the social media world that like kind of whistleblow on the social media of like, yeah, they're just rigging this so that you will just never stop engaging. And they are selling your data and they are influencing your mind. This culminates in a 2020 Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, which if you want a more in-depth look at all this, I recommend it. The kind of one of the stars of it is a guy named Tristan Harris, who becomes one of the like big voices. He was an ethicist for Google, and now works with a thing called the Center for Humane Technology. It was like, how do we make this all a little less addictive and a little less exploitative of users? Anyways.
Well, and so have you seen that? Not even just how we consume, but how it affects. Have you seen the studies they've done on children and how it affects their gray matter development?
Yeah.
Like it's literally changing the brains of humanity. Like the big one that came out was the German neuroscientist Manfred Spitzer, that has been putting this information out there. But they showed so completely the correlation between screen use, technology use in children, and a reduction in our actual brain capacity to learn, to engage. It affects our gray matter development as a species. So this is completely changing humanity.
Well, and this is something that guys like folks like Tristan Harris bring out, is all of these things are set up to release low doses of dopamine into your brain all the time.
Yes.
Right, which is also like what gambling does. It's also addiction. Like what drugs do.
Right.
They use the mechanics of addiction, right? Like then when you like something. So also in the Guardian piece is the person who invented the like pull down to refresh mechanic,
Yes.
originally for a Twitter app that then got pulled into Twitter, that is now kind of ubiquitous. And that is literally because it releases dopamine when then, oh my God, there's new stuff. Oh my God, there's new stuff. Yep. It's not even that you get likes and that releases dopamine. Just the like appearance of new stuff, dopamine, right?
Yes.
You keep consuming. This helps you fight off sleep, right? This is, this is as nasty as casinos pump higher levels of oxygen into casino floors so that you become less tired.
Yes.
And so you just keep gambling. It's the same.
So sleep. It's less sleep because.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It says this is a chronic insomniac. So church, right? One of this is, part of why I bring all this up is if Netflix's biggest competitor is sleep, our biggest competitor is no longer children's sports. Right? So we often tell the story of the struggle of church in the modern world, of there's just so many activities and we're just one activity among many. And that's true, but that's not the real root of the problem. To me, or maybe that's part of the problem. But the other part of the problem is multi-trillion-dollar companies have a vested investment in sucking up as much human time as possible. And in the end, engaging in a religious life also takes human time. And so if you feel like the headwinds of the age are against you, and you are you are inherently a thing that requires human time and attention, whether it is religion or a faith life or the struggle of climate change or whatever, right?
Or whatever.
Yeah. No, it turns out these headwinds are huge because people who, we're a scrappy church that barely makes a few $100,000 a year and then shovels that immediately into the, furnace of our budget. And we run on human attention. We always have. It's about people coming together and experiencing God together. That's church. And
that's church. That's discipleship.
And we're up against Meta and Google, who have, by the way, we're going to post this show on a Meta-owned platform. We'll get to that in a second. I use the Meta Business Suite to publish this show. Hi, Mark. Yep. It's great. When my previous show, we would have, because the internet was bad in Palestine, Texas, we would have internet struggles, and we would just blame Mark Zuckerberg. And so just, hi, Mark. It's
hi,
good.
Mark.
It's good. It's healthy. But that is, to frame the cultural headwinds, everyone trying to do anything of merit in this world that relies on human attention are fighting back against people who have rigged at a system of addiction to create multi-trillion-dollar companies off of garnering as much human attention as possible.
In as many places as possible and as quickly as possible. So it's not just how much are you in front of people for their attention, but how quickly you get in front of them, because if it's not almost instant, then are they going to see you? So our teenagers are constantly on, TikTok. They're scrolling through a feed just on repeat all day, every day, right? And Tim, my husband, will do that as well, but he's in like Facebook Reels. He's in the old people one. They call it the old people one because
TikTok
they don't,
for adults.
Right, it's TikTok for adults. It's his For You page is different than their For You page, right? And so, but he'll send them something funny that reminds him of them, and they're like, Uncle Tim, we saw this like 2 weeks ago. Like, where have you been? Like it's already old news, even though it just got posted yesterday. So like, we already know that, like, this is done. Like they've already seen the things. So you are already irrelevant by the time your stuff posts if you're not posting in real time. It's tricky.
And it's tricky. And it is, you end up with such a high bar to clear to garner human attention.
Yes.
Right? That it is because you have to compete with just sitting on your phone and getting fed stuff that you're interested in. Because again, the algorithms have created this world, right? The algorithms have created a system where they know exactly what you're interested in, and so you don't. And this leaks into a lot of areas of life. You don't have to be challenged if you don't want to. And in part of church's challenge and challenging people, and that's tough too. Church is about coming together with people who are not necessarily totally like you, and you don't have to do that. And we're all, even the biggest churches are pale in comparison to the scale of these companies that are seeking to dominate as much human attention as possible because they can make hundreds of billions of dollars doing it.
And because they understood that you are the product. That is the thing that they can make money off of, is you are now the product. Your attention is the thing, is the economy that they have been dealing in much longer than the rest of the world, I feel like.
Well, and they have gotten so good. If you think of, let's use the analogy of a mine, right? That if you run a mine, you are an expert in how do you extract whatever ore it is you seek from under the earth, right? I live in a city built on the oil industry. Gas is expensive, but if they hadn't gotten so good at extracting that stuff from underneath the earth, gas would be even more expensive because even they know that there's our pain tolerance is lower than they would like it to be. And so they have gotten so good, just miraculously good at exactly targeting where that stuff is and shooting that thing down into anyways, right?
Yeah.
So keep in mind that, again, this is the scale, like, there's not a mining conglomerate on the list of top 10 companies. There's only one oil company. Used to be a lot more oil companies. So these people are as good as Saudi Arabian oil. They're as good at extracting your attention and your data as Saudi Arabian oil is at extracting oil from underneath the earth. They are so good at it. And by the way, they're willing to do things that we're not because we're going to go with amoral for the purposes of this show. They are amoral and willing to pull on levers of addiction. And theoretically, if we were running a healthy faith community, we are not.
Right. So what do you do?
So it's hard out there, friends. And this is part of why, some of why church is hard, as we've talked about it a lot, is our own fault. We have screwed up for generations to show people that we're actually a good thing in their life and not a bad thing in their society. Like, that's part of it. And that's all, it is multi-generations of not understanding what matters about a faith life, but making it about how you dress, the kind of music, the having or not having of tattoos, right? All of
or
that.
How it
like
makes
when
you
we did
feel.
all of that.
Right.
Right. We did all of that. But the another piece of this puzzle is everyone is struggling to get human attention because it has ended up the most valuable commodity on the planet.
So how do you do that and remain on the moral high ground? How do you get in front of people? How do you get in their feed and let them see the importance of what it is that you're doing while remaining on that moral high ground?
And that, when we figure that out, Lord knows, we'll be millionaires, right?
Right.
But this is, so some of me seeking an answer to that question is what we're doing on this show, is what this show is this time around with this set of digital ministries. I am posting it far more places. I am trying to figure out what is a sustainable web of things that we have an opportunity to let the bad people. I actually think Facebook is just legitimately bad people. Google, I'll maybe give you as amoral. Facebook is just, and yet here we are. Hi, Mark. I should put a picture for post-production. I should put a picture of Mark Zuckerberg between the two of us, and so we can just wave it. Everybody wave at Mark.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
But some of this is, and why, I was down in Clute, Texas, a couple of weeks ago and just sent them a proposal of, I've done streaming ministry, streaming systems in Malakoff, Texas, and Clute and Fairfield, and because the tools to do some digital ministry and at least have an opportunity to both see people on Sunday and show up in their feeds helps. I don't think it's the capital T, capital A, the answer. And we're trying to figure out how do we sustainably branch out and find things. And I call this thing the Media Lab, not just because it sounds cool, because I really think of this as I don't have these answers. It's a laboratory. We're experimenting. I don't know. And in some ways, I'm the wrong person to do it because I, used to be a great believer in social media. And now the only thing I post to Facebook in a week is a rundown of the things that I've made. And that's a huge step forward from what I did for about, 7-8 years, where I was just not on Facebook at all.
So if you want to help us with this experiment in this lab, though, this is where you can help us figure out the algorithm, right? Share it, like it, give us 5-star reviews, go on Apple Podcasts, subscribe to it. Let us know what it works and how you stumbled upon our feed, right? Email us and let us know, how did you come upon our Media Lab, right? This experiment that is this digital podcast that we are doing.
Because the speech I give when I do the communications consulting side of my life, the speech I give it's a sermon, and it's grounded in the story of Paul in Athens. So you think about Paul in Athens. He goes to the Agora, the Greek marketplace. This is the Roman era, so it's all the Roman Empire, but Athens is obviously Greek. So he goes to the Agora, and he makes enough of a spectacle of himself in the Agora that he gets called up to the Areopagus to debate. So in the Roman Agora and in Roman temples is prostitution, is meat sacrificed to idols, is, Greco-Roman society was very licentious. It was always clustered right around each other. In the structure of Greek and Roman cities were a community toilet, a community bath, and a community brothel, and that was just the pillar institutions of it is get the bad things out of you, get the bad things off of you, and go to the brothel. This was just normal Roman life. Okay, and so that's where Paul is. That's where Paul spends his whole ministry is, when I was in Ephesus, right? You can see really clearly, this is the Agora where he was. And we stood in the communal toilet. And there was a platform for musicians to play while you poop. This is real. This is just...
Interesting.
I
know about musicians while you poop.
Yeah, so you could pay money to go into the fancy community toilet and listen to musicians while you poop with your friends. And it's
So
just like,
even then, it was attention economy. It was just a different
yeah,
kind.
yeah. But you paid. There's just like these lines of I guess it's Roman, some sort of stone.
Right.
Toilet seats all next to each other, no privacy. And so it's you, like 20 of your friends and some musicians while you poop. Real, okay? This is going somewhere. But like, so these are, and the Areopagus, right? Mars Hill, it is a debating society dedicated to a Roman god.
Right.
God Mars. In view of the Parthenon, dedicated to Athena. The Athena Parthenos. Okay, so he is in a immoral to amoral environment. He is not comfortably within the confines. He preached in synagogues too, but here in Athens, he is not comfortably within the confines of a synagogue full of godly and God-fearing people. He is out in the immoral, amoral marketplace of of Roman, Greco-Roman towns, cities. With the, in, I think it's Colossae? No, Corinth, excuse me. The Temple of Aphrodite in Corinth had like 1,000 attendants.
Wink, wink. Yeah.
1,000 attendants. And that when he is in Corinth, that is the shadow that he is working within. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's us in the attention economy. Or at least that's my take on us in the attention economy. Is I know every once in a while we buy Facebook advertising, and I am trying desperately to inject us into your feeds, into these things that I know are grounded in addiction mechanics and are building these multi-trillion-dollar companies because that they have built the new agora.
Mm-hmm.
And it's bad. And it is one of the things that is the headwind that we're trying to tack into in trying to build the church in the 21st century is, and now with so Facebook and Apple, Meta and Apple, both have these VR headsets that
VRs, yes.
have
We're in Ready Player One.
Yeah, no, but it's even worse than that because they have what's called pass-through. So they have cameras outside to show you. And Apple's vision in particular is that you're just wearing these things all the time. Mm-hmm. And that's how you see the real world. And then they can superimpose computer stuff over the real world, which is interesting on a tech level. But it means that even more of your interaction will be mediated through these companies. They will be garnering even more of your attention because now they will know every place your eye lands. And they'll be able to image recognize what did you look at.
Yes.
Right? This is a headwind.
Yes.
And they are.
It's Minority Report. It's Ready Player One. It's all of the dystopian futuristic things that we grew up reading about and learning about growing up. It's here. It's now. They exist.
Right. Mm-hmm. And they make this church restarting thing harder. Mm-hmm. Because not just because they're shrinking the human attention span, well, that doesn't help, right? Because sometimes you have to relate very complex ideas, like the grace of God, which, it's really hard to do in 5 seconds.
Right.
It's
10-second reels is a long reel and a scrolling,
right.
as you're scrolling.
It's tough, and this is one of those things where I feel ill-equipped for the modern era, because it's why I like podcasting. Because podcasting, you can just go, the goal is to just go. I am, that's why podcasting is my chosen medium, and at some point I think that's going to make me a boomer, because everybody I know listens to podcasts, but so does my dad, who is I think listening to the show and is a boomer.
Yeah,
and we've got to figure out.
Maybe someday we'll be the okay podcaster instead of okay boomer. It's going to be the
right. No, so a lot of times, I go to a lot of old folks' homes because it's just a professional hazard. And a lot of them have like 1950s themed stuff, right? It's that kind of Happy Days nostalgia. And I think, and so they're playing like, sock hop music from the 50s or Buddy Holly or whatever. And when we go there, they're going to be playing like episodes of Serial. Right? When we're in the old folks' home, they will be built by Disney, and they will play podcasts.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Or like AI generated versions of the podcasters that we remember. If you don't think you can escape Joe Rogan now, just wait till you're trapped in the old folks' home, where the only thing you can listen to is Disney approved Joe Rogan that's been AI created, right? Yeah, that's stark. But so this especially, I don't have answers. I more just wanted to like lay out some data of, hey, this is one of the reasons why it's hard.
Yes.
Is it's just hard. In part because we are competing, for lack of a better word. We are not just competing with soccer and brunch. We are, but because it's all time. But, your kid's soccer coach is not a multi-trillion-dollar. The YMCA is a nonprofit like we are, right? Like they are working in your local brunch place didn't make $170 billion last year, right? They maybe broke even and made a little bit of a profit because it's a restaurant, right? But that when you're competing against soccer and brunch, we're competing on an even playing field. Right? And then then it behooves us to be a good, healthy religious community. When you think of those as your competitors, again, like that's like hard, but all of us are similarly scaled organizations, and there are big restaurant conglomerates in the way that there are big mega churches, but none of us are the top 10 most valuable companies on the planet. It's Facebook. Meta. It's the attention economy. It's Google. We're going to post this to a Google-owned platform, YouTube, right? And it makes it harder for us to garner the time. And so it behooves us to be in these places.
Right. To go to the Agora, to be in those places, to create the content, or at least to put the content that you're already creating into the digital world, right? If you're already writing a sermon, put it in the digital world.
We don't all have to become influencers. I'm really failing at doing it. But there are ways, you're right. And this is something that we've seen a lot of good results with, of even just relatively small things like live streaming your worship service. When you live stream your worship service, you have a chance of meeting some folks who you may not meet, but also have a chance to hold on to your folks that you've currently got, because you show up in their feed. And so there now becomes another point of contact where they have an opportunity to connect with their own discipleship. And so there are things, but the short answer is we've got to be in this digital space. And and then pray. Because this is one of those where we're going to need God's help, because these are forces way larger than us. Or we talked about on the scripture episode this week about the Roman Empire, right? And that's what God defeats in the resurrection. And Google's about that size, right? Feels that way. Google's about that size. Yeah. Anyways, if you have digital ministry things that have worked, or perspectives on the attention economy, we'd love to hear them. The goodness of God pod at gmail.com, the goodness of God pod at gmail.com, where Google will read that email, and store it and advertise to you and us against it. If you want more of what we do here, guess what? Facebook.com/ServantsNow, a Meta-owned company. YouTube.com/ServantsNow, a Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google and YouTube, owned company. And servantsnow.org, which admittedly is not hosted on the platform of a major tech company, but you will use presumably an Apple device to go there. Also, if you want to help make this show possible, certainly the Texas Annual Conference, United Methodist Church, and their Innovators Grant helped us get started. But we need your help. And it is use the tools of the attention economy. Comment, subscribe. You'll get, by liking the show, you will get a small hit of dopamine, and so will we. Comment, subscribe. Leave us 5-star
Share it with your friends.
Share it with your friends. And leave us 5-star reviews on Apple Podcast. That will help. We are using the exact tools that I have spent this show decrying. Welcome to the Agora, friends. Go in peace. To love and serve the Lord. We'll see you next time, or presumably we will have been punished by our digital overlords.